The old woman stood on my porch in bedroom slippers, one empty hand pressed over her heart as if she had misplaced something inside it. She could not tell me her name, where she lived, or why she had chosen my house. I had $489 in the bank, 2 late mortgage payments, a demolition notice beside the door, and a 7-year-old daughter watching from behind my leg. Every sensible instinct said to call the authorities and stay distant. Instead, I opened the door. I gave the stranger soup, the chair nearest the wood stove, and the pale blue blanket my late wife had sewn. I did not know she was Eleanor Vale, mother of Claire Vale, the billionaire CEO whose company was about to take my home without compensation. I also did not know that 29 days later, Eleanor would call her daughter and refuse to reveal her location unless Claire agreed to marry me. That impossible demand exposed the lie that destroyed my wife's name and forced me to decide whether love born inside a bargain could become real. Before I tell you how, like, subscribe, and comment. Would you open your door to a stranger when your own family was one crisis from losing everything? My name is Caleb Mason. I was 30, widowed, and raising 7-year-old Lucy in a narrow cedar house outside Bellwether, Pennsylvania. The house leaned, the pipes complained, and the workshop behind it was our only income. I built tables, repaired stairs, and took jobs that fit between school drop-off and bedtime. Before Rachel died, I had been a structural systems engineer with a master's degree and 6 years of field experience. She was killed in the Rivergate Convention Center collapse 3 years earlier. The official report said she approved removing temporary braces. I knew she never would. But the authorization carried her credentials. The city closed the case and engineering firms stopped returning my calls. So I worked wood while the same city prepared to take our home. Bellwether's Redevelopment Authority and Vale Urban Systems planned a riverfront technology district over our road. Neighbors received buyouts. I received condemnation. Officials used a disputed tax lien and an emergency remediation label to declare our occupied property non-compensable. Demolition was 6 weeks away. That was the morning the old woman appeared. The number in my bank account mattered because every choice had become arithmetic. $489 meant groceries, heating oil, or part of the mortgage, but not all three. Lucy still slept beneath the blue quilt Rachel had stitched during pregnancy, its corners worn pale from 7 years of small hands. I had promised her that grief would not take the house too. The condemnation notice made that promise feel like another debt I could not pay. The workshop was more than income. Rachel and I had built its first wall together. After her death, I rebuilt the roof alone, then taught myself to shape furniture well enough that strangers paid for it. Every table carried the stubborn proof that I could still make something stand. Losing the property meant losing the shop, Lucy's school district, and the last place where our family had been whole. I called 911 before the soup warmed. Paramedics found dehydration and exhaustion, but no injury requiring admission. A sheriff searched missing person records while Lucy colored beside her. The woman wore a good wool coat over a nightgown, soaked slippers, and a gold band. She had no purse, phone, identification, or clear memory. "What is your name?" the deputy asked. "Nora," she said after a long pause.
Think. "And your last name?"
There was a bell. At the hospital, a doctor suspected a neurocognitive condition. Adult Protective Services had no matching case, and the county had no appropriate memory care bed that night. A caseworker named Denise Harper asked whether I could keep her until morning. "One night," I agreed. One night became 3 days, then a week. I filed reports, posted her photograph, contacted hospitals and senior centers, and accepted visiting nurse checks. The only clue was a bus transfer from Youngstown, Ohio, 90 miles away. Whoever searched for her was looking in another state, and I later learned that the rest of the search had been deliberately kept quiet. I did not simply bring a confused stranger home and hope for the best. Denise photographed every item she wore, arranged a background check on me, and made me sign a temporary safety plan. Our neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, was a retired nurse and agreed to check in whenever I worked. I put a bell on the back door, locked away tools and medicine, and slept lightly enough to hear every floorboard. The national reports still failed to match her. The family searching for Eleanor had filed under veil, while she called herself Nora Bell, her mother's maiden name. Their private security kept the disappearance out of the news, claiming publicity could invite ransom demands and panic investors. My posts stayed inside local Pennsylvania groups. Their search centered around Cleveland and New York. It was a perfect modern failure. Thousands of people looking, but not in the same place or under the same name. At first, the woman we called Nora was quiet and wary. Some mornings she knew the bathroom. Other mornings she opened the pantry and asked why the elevator would not come. I wrote on a chalkboard by the kitchen door, "Caleb, Lucy, you are safe here." Lucy added Nora in purple chalk and drew a heart. Nora peeled apples, sanded toy blocks under my supervision, and sat beside the wood stove while Lucy read. The first time she called Lucy Celeste, she began to cry. "That is not your name." "It can be my secret name," Lucy said. "No." The woman touched her cheek. "Your name matters." She said it with the force of someone who had watched names be erased. Lucy never treated Nora like a burden. She gave her choices that did not require memory: red mug or blue, apple slices or toast, music or silence. On difficult evenings they sat beneath the blue blanket and sorted buttons by color. Nora sometimes asked where her husband was, then apologized when she remembered he had died. Lucy would answer, "You do not have to be sorry for missing somebody." Watching them hurt and healed me at the same time. Rachel had feared Lucy would grow up guarded after the accident. Instead, our daughter had inherited her mother's courage in the gentlest form. On the 9th morning, I found Eleanor in my workshop studying the redevelopment plans. "This load path is wrong," she said, tracing a transfer beam. "They moved the column line, but kept the old shear assumptions." Then the fog returned, and she asked whether we were waiting for a train. She was right. The flaw was subtle enough that only someone with technical experience should have seen it. I showed her one of Rachel's field notebooks. When she reached a Rivergate page, the notebook slipped from her hands. "Marcus," she whispered. That night I searched public records. Marcus Dane was vice chairman and chief operations officer of Vale Urban Systems, the company behind both Rivergate and the Bellwether development. Its CEO was Claire Vale, 26, brilliant and famous for being impossible to intimidate. Her mother, Eleanor Vale, was a retired architect and company co-founder. The old photographs were poor, but the eyes matched the woman sleeping beneath Rachel's blanket. I called Vale Urban and told corporate security that I might have found Eleanor Vale. The man asked for my finances and address before he asked about her. When I described the crescent scar under her left wrist, he paused. "Mrs. Vale is not missing," he said, and disconnected. The next morning, 2 city inspectors arrived without notice and tried to enter my house. I blocked the door, photographed their badges, and sent the record to my lawyer. That was when I stopped believing the search failure was accidental. I withdrew Eleanor's photograph from public pages, gave everything directly to Denise and state investigators, and kept Eleanor away from pressure. Whatever her identity, she was a person before she was evidence. I searched Claire's public life before calling. She had taken control of Vale Urban at 24 after her father's death, fought off a hostile takeover, and doubled the company's value. Business magazines praised her discipline and criticized her for the same trait in the next paragraph. In every photograph, she looked like a woman who had learned that one visible weakness would be treated as public property. That made the security officer's denial more alarming, not less. A company powerful enough to locate machinery on another continent should have been able to find its founder's mother. Someone did not want the right search to succeed. On the 12th day, Eleanor left $500 beneath my coffee mug. "You need it," she said. I did. The bank had called twice that morning. "Is it yours?" "I don't know." "Then I cannot use it." "What if I say it is a gift?" "You cannot give away money you may not remember having." Her eyes sharpened. "And if I were rich?" "You would still need the freedom to decide without confusion." For several seconds, she looked fully present. Then she smiled. "Good." I found the cash inside her coat lining beside a thin metal card marked only with a geometric symbol and numbers. I turned both over to Denise. Eleanor later asked why I had not paid the bank. "Because I could have been stealing from you." "That should not surprise anyone," I said when she praised me. "It does," she answered. By the third week, Lucy could make her laugh even on bad mornings. They built a walnut dollhouse and reinforced its tiny staircase with triangular braces. Eleanor taught Lucy a 4-note melody on the church keyboard. Lucy taught her voice search. Their joy did what doctors and questions could not. It slowly brought pieces of Eleanor back. On the 29th day, Lucy ran into the workshop shouting, "Dad, Nora remembers!" Eleanor stood in the kitchen wearing her coat, Rachel's blue blanket folded behind her. "My name is Eleanor Celeste Vale. Nora Bell was my mother." She dialed from memory. A woman answered before the first ring ended. "Mother?" Fear cracked through the controlled voice. "Yes, Claire. I am alive. A man named Caleb Mason gave me shelter." Claire demanded the address. Eleanor refused. "I will give it under one condition," she said. "Come yourself, without Marcus, and marry Caleb Mason." Lucy gasped. I nearly choked. After 5 stunned seconds, Claire answered with the precision of someone signing a hostile acquisition. "Fine. I'll marry him. Now tell me where you are." Eleanor gave the address and ended the call. "You cannot bargain with people's lives," I said. She needed a reason to come without Marcus. Before I could ask who Marcus was, black SUVs turned onto our road. Claire arrived 18 minutes later, proving she had already been searching nearby. She stepped out in a charcoal coat with security officers and a doctor. Her face remained composed until she saw Eleanor. Then she ran. Mother and daughter held each other so tightly they nearly fell. When Claire finally released her, she turned cold eyes on me. "You kept my mother here for a month." "I kept her safe for a month." "You failed to contact us." "I called your security office. They said she was not missing. City inspectors arrived the next morning." Claire looked at the officer behind her. He hesitated. "Marcus's people," Eleanor said. Claire's jaw tightened. Claire's suspicion did not offend me as much as her assumption that money explained every human choice. She had arrived expecting a captor, a ransom, or a publicity scheme. Instead, she found Lucy's drawings taped beside Eleanor's medication chart and a pot of soup stretched thin enough to feed 4 people. When her doctor suggested moving Eleanor immediately, I stopped him. "Ask her first." Claire looked at me as if no one had ever challenged the machinery surrounding her. Eleanor chose to remain through the night. Claire could have overruled her through emergency guardianship, but after a long silence, she told the team to stand down. That was the first decision I saw her make against fear. Inside, Claire inspected the chalkboard, medication schedule, nurse's notes, and latch I had installed after Eleanor tried to leave at 2 in the morning. Then she saw the condemnation order beside the door with her company's logo at the bottom. "I didn't know this parcel was occupied," she said. "Your people did. Vale Urban does not seize occupied homes without compensation. Then someone is using your name to do it. An attorney offered me a generous care reimbursement and confidentiality agreement. I refused. Your mother is not a hotel expense. Claire said I was behind on my mortgage. I stepped close enough that she had to meet my eyes.
You examined my finances before you examined what happened to your mother.
I needed to know whether she was being exploited.
I have a motive to hate your company. That is not the same as a motive to steal.
Eleanor entered. He found $500 in my coat and surrendered it to the county. He fed me, found doctors, defended this house, and gave me his dead wife's blanket. Insult him again and I will leave with him instead of you. And me, Lucy called from the hall. Claire's expression softened. Then every phone in the room began vibrating. A recording of Eleanor's demand had leaked. By sunset, business networks were reporting that Claire Vale had agreed to marry an unknown widowed carpenter in exchange for her missing mother's location. Marcus Dane appeared on television and called it potential coercion. My mortgage balance, Rachel's accident, and the condemnation case were published within an hour. Claire stared at the leaked report on my kitchen television. That call was recorded through our internal security system. Eleanor sat beneath the blue blanket. Marcus wants Caleb to look like a criminal before I speak. After Lucy went upstairs, Eleanor told us why she had vanished. During a lucid period, she overheard Marcus planning to have her declared permanently incompetent so he could control her voting shares and complete the Bellwether acquisition. She had also heard him discuss an old Rivergate liability archive that would disappear when a subsidiary was dissolved. Eleanor admitted she was ill, but not incapable of choice. She escaped during a transfer to a Cleveland clinic, boarded a bus to meet a former company lawyer, then forgot the lawyer's name and got off in the wrong town. "Why my house?" I asked. "I saw Mason on the mailbox," she said. "I remembered that I had failed Rachel." She explained that Rachel had warned her 3 days before the collapse that someone altered the temporary bracing schedule. Eleanor trusted Marcus when he said the issue had been corrected. After Rachel died and Eleanor's husband suffered a heart attack, the board rushed the investigation. "You let them blame her," I said. Yes. The absence of excuses made her confession harder to hate. The metal card from her coat was an access token to the Founders Archive. Denise returned it under police escort. By midnight, Claire opened files containing board minutes, insurance correspondence, change orders, and an audio recording. Rachel's voice filled my kitchen. "I will not approve removal of the East transfer braces. The revised pour sequence creates a progressive collapse risk. If anyone uses my credentials, the authorization is fraudulent." I had not heard her voice in 3 years. When Claire reached for the laptop, I closed it. Rachel's last warning would not become background noise while executives discussed strategy. "I'm sorry," Claire said. Sorry is what people say when truth costs them nothing. "Then tell me what it should cost." "Everything required to make it right." She ordered an independent hold on Bellwether. Marcus countermanded it before sunrise. Claire could suspend work for 72 hours, but a permanent stop required a board vote or injunction. We had 9 days, and the leaked marriage promise made every move look compromised. Before I agreed to the false engagement, I made Claire tell Lucy herself. We sat at the kitchen table, Eleanor between us. "This is a public arrangement," Claire said carefully. "Your father and I are helping each other stop bad people from hiding the truth." Lucy studied her. "Do you like him?" Claire glanced at me. "I respect him." "That is not what I asked." Eleanor covered a laugh with a cough. Claire's cheeks colored. "I am beginning to." Lucy accepted that answer, but warned us that pretending about feelings was how adults make trouble. She was right sooner than either of us wanted. Eleanor proposed the most ridiculous answer to our problem. "Announce the engagement." Claire stared at her. "You cannot be serious." "Marcus already leaked it. Use the attention." Caleb understands the engineering evidence. You control the records. Together, you are harder to isolate. I will not marry someone for strategy, Claire said. Neither will I. Then lose separately, Eleanor replied. I hated that the logic was sound. Claire and I negotiated in the workshop. The engagement would last 30 days, or until the board investigation ended. I refused money, demanded equal legal protection for every homeowner in the corridor, and barred anyone from using Rachel's story as public relations. We would tell Lucy the arrangement was temporary. Finally, I required Claire to inspect Bellwether's designs herself. You think I cannot understand them? She asked. I think you have allowed other people to understand them for you. I graduated first in my class from MIT, so prove it. She held out her hand. 30 days, Caleb Mason. I took it. 30 days, Claire Vale. The next morning we announced the engagement on my porch. A reporter asked whether I was marrying her to save my house. No, I said. I am standing beside her to save the truth. The house is only where the truth found us. For the next week, Claire worked from my kitchen because she no longer trusted headquarters. At night, she joined me in the shop. Together we found that the same shell subcontractor linked to Rivergate had won Bellwether's foundations package under a new name. Marcus approved this without technical review, she said. Or buried the review. My father trusted him. So did your mother. And you trust no one. I trusted Rachel. Claire did not retreat. Loving someone who died does not require you to distrust everyone who lived. The words struck because they were true. It was the first honest thing anyone had said to me about grief in years. Working together revealed the parts of Claire no interview had captured. She could dissect a procurement contract in minutes but did not know how to repair a loose cabinet hinge. She listened when I showed her, then fixed every hinge in the kitchen because doing only one felt inefficient. She wore expensive suits into the workshop, rolled up the sleeves, and learned to read saw marks from my hands. I saw the cost of her control when Eleanor confused her with a childhood friend and ordered her out of the room. Claire obeyed, walked to the porch, and stood in the cold without a coat. She did not know me, she said when I joined her. She knew she was frightened. That is not the same. No, but it is not nothing. Claire looked toward the window where Lucy was making Eleanor laugh. My father died while I was negotiating debt in Singapore. I finished the meeting before I cried. Everyone praised my strength. That was not strength, I said. That was survival. What is the difference? Strength lets someone stand beside you. For once, she had no answer. She simply moved closer until our shoulders touched. Our fake engagement created a closeness neither of us expected. Claire learned that Lucy hated sandwich crusts and began cutting them off without comment. She moved calls to the porch during Eleanor's confused evening hours and sat beside her mother until the fear passed. I learned that Claire stopped eating when she was afraid, so I left soup near her laptop. She always finished it after pretending not to notice. During an ice storm blackout, I found her studying Rachel's photograph. She was beautiful, Claire said. She hated that picture, said it made her look too serious. I know the feeling. I told her Rachel believed buildings were promises. Once you invited people inside, you owed them safety. My mother said the same thing about cities, Claire answered. Then she admitted that she had been 21 during Rivergate. Her father kept her away from legal problems, and Marcus later gave her summaries instead of files. I thought I was leading because the decisions carried my signature. Maybe I was only approving the world he arranged. You are changing that now. Because Rachel's voice forced me to? No, because you chose to listen. The distance between us narrowed until Lucy called from upstairs. We stepped apart, but the interruption only delayed what we were afraid to name. The next morning, the city advanced demolition by 4 days. Marcus had produced an environmental report claiming my property was contaminated. I compared the sample coordinates with the county grid and found they came from an abandoned plating yard half a mile east. At the emergency hearing, I asked Claire not to speak first. I had spent 3 years being treated as Rachel's emotional husband instead of a qualified engineer. I would not repeat it. I showed the judge the false coordinates, altered chain of custody form, and photographs staged to exaggerate harmless foundation movement. I explained that my workshop exceeded local snow load requirements by 40% and that the city's own metadata tied the altered report to a Vail Urban Project account. The judge granted a temporary stay. Outside, Claire waited until we reached my truck. "You were magnificent." I was prepared. "You were both." I opened her door. "Do not admire me too much. We are still pretending." Her hand rested on the frame. "Are we?" I had no answer that would not change everything. That night, Claire helped Lucy finish the desk I had started. She held the boards while I drove the screws, and Eleanor supervised as if approving a bridge. Lucy carved 4 initials beneath the top: C, L, E, and C. "You put my initial twice," Claire said. "One is Caleb, one is Claire. That means you both belong." Claire looked at me, waiting for a joke that never came. I ran my thumb over the letters and felt the future becoming real before I had given it permission. Later, she found me sweeping sawdust. "Your daughter is dangerous." "She gets that from her mother." "Which one?" The question held no jealousy, only respect for Rachel and uncertainty about her own place. I set down the broom. "She has one mother," I said, "but she can love more than one woman who stays." Claire lowered her eyes. When she looked up, hope had replaced fear. The hearing also changed how the public saw me. For 3 years, headlines had reduced me to a grieving husband who could not accept an official finding. Now engineers began calling. Former Rivergate workers sent statements. One foreman remembered seeing a remote administrator access Rachel's terminal. A lab technician remembered being told to discard an early concrete report. Each new witness strengthened the case and increased the danger. Marcus was no longer protecting a project. He was protecting himself. Our temporary victory frightened Marcus. A complaint accused me of exploiting a vulnerable adult. Child Protective Services received an anonymous report about Lucy. The mortgage company accelerated foreclosure after a private buyer offered to purchase my debt. Then edited workshop footage showed Eleanor handing me cash, but cut away before I refused it. Denise brought investigators to the house. I gave them the full recording, receipts, care logs, and proof that I had surrendered both the money and the access token. They said the case should clear quickly. "Quickly is not before my daughter hears about it at school," I said. That night, Lucy sat beneath Rachel's blue blanket. A classmate had called me a thief. "Claire will leave after 30 days, right?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you want her to?" I looked toward the kitchen where Claire was fighting with counsel on a secure call. "No." "Then tell her. Mom said complicated is sometimes another word for scared." Before I could act, Claire announced a temporary leave as CEO and publicly ended the engagement. By noon, she was gone. Her only message said, "I need distance to protect Lucy and the case. Trust me for 48 hours." Eleanor tried to explain that Claire was cutting Marcus's argument away from me, but secrecy did not feel like protection. It felt like control. That evening, Eleanor walked into the snow without her coat, calling for Celeste. I found her near the road, shaking and unable to recognize me. At the hospital, doctors discovered that a clinic medication was interacting with another prescription and worsening her confusion. Claire arrived at 3 in the morning. "I should have been here," she said. Yes, the word hurt her, but strength is not pretending harm did not happen. "You do not get to decide what I can survive," I told her. "You do not protect me by making me powerless. Rachel's death taught me what silence costs." Claire held my gaze. I was wrong. She explained that Marcus was calling an emergency vote to seize Eleanor's shares. During her leave, Claire had secured independent directors, outside ethics counsel, and a federal investigator. She needed Marcus to believe we had split so he would expose his move. I was trained to isolate risk and act before anyone could stop me, she said. Those habits built a company around me and left no one beside me.
I am sorry because I may have cost us something I did not know how to name. I knew the name, but I was not ready to say it beside Eleanor's hospital bed. At the hospital, after Claire admitted she had acted without me, I set a boundary neither of us could misunderstand. If we continue, I said, you do not make decisions about my family in secret. You can ask me to take a risk. You cannot choose it for me. And if the risk includes Lucy, then we decide together. Claire nodded. The same rule applies to my mother. Yes. It was not a romantic promise, but it was the foundation of one. Neither of us would call control protection again. Marcus will challenge the Rivergate archive, I said. The audio proves Rachel objected, not who used her credentials. We found damaged system logs, Claire said. His attorneys call them corrupted. I kept Rachel's field tablet. Investigators had returned it with her belongings because it no longer powered on.
I had never thrown it away. At an independent forensic lab, 2 technicians helped me remove the storage module while Claire prepared affidavits. The board meeting was 7 hours away. At 8:17 a.m., we recovered the local authentication cache. It showed Rachel's credentials had been cloned from a remote administrator account assigned to Marcus Dane's project office. We also found an unsent video. Rachel appeared in a hard hat, dust on her cheek. Caleb, if this reaches you, I was right, and they would not listen. Do not let Lucy grow up believing silence is the same as peace. The video ended after 19 seconds. I turned away. Claire came near but did not touch me until I nodded. Then her hand closed around mine. Not for cameras or an engagement, but because I was breaking and she chose to stand there. We reached Vale Urban after the board meeting began. Marcus had blocked the private elevators, so Claire climbed 23 floors through the public stairwell, carrying her shoes by the 10th. We entered with Rachel's tablet, the founder's archive, and a federal preservation order. Marcus looked at me. The extortionist carpenter. Licensed engineer, I said. Widower of the woman you framed. Try to keep up. He claimed Eleanor lacked capacity. The archive was stolen, and Claire's judgment had been compromised by me. Claire did not deny our relationship. My failure was not caring too much about Caleb Mason. My failure was trusting executives who taught me that people were liabilities and truth was a scheduling problem. She played Rachel's warning and presented the recovered authentication record. Outside counsel confirmed the evidence had already gone to federal investigators, state prosecutors, insurers, and every Rivergate family. Marcus threatened to destroy the company if the board removed him. That threat decided the vote. He was terminated, his proxy request rejected, all bellwether demolitions suspended, and federal agents met him in the lobby. The boardroom victory belonged to Claire as much as the evidence belonged to me. Marcus tried to bait her into anger, but she forced him to answer dates, signatures, and account numbers. When he attacked Eleanor's condition, Claire placed her mother's recent competency evaluation on the table and reminded every director that illness did not erase ownership. I watched the board stop seeing a young heiress defending her fiancé and start seeing the leader Marcus had underestimated. She did not need me to defeat him. She chose to fight beside me, and that difference mattered. Claire found me alone in an empty conference room after the vote, listening to the city below. Rachel's name was not cleared yet, my house was not safe yet, and Marcus was not convicted. Still, the truth was finally moving. "Works," she said, handing me coffee. "We survived a vote. That is how billion-dollar companies define winning." I build tables. I require stronger joints. Then help me build them. She offered me a senior executive position leading structural integrity and community redevelopment. The salary could have erased every debt I had, but the reporting line placed me beneath the same operations division that had buried Rivergate. I closed the folder. No. Pain crossed her face. Because you do not trust me? Because this is written as rescue. I turned the contract around. Give the safety office independent authority to stop any project. Create a resident review board for Bellwether. Compensate occupied homes fairly. Preserve my workshop as a training center. Put Rivergate in the public record even if the lawsuits cost your company. You are negotiating like someone who knows I need him. I am negotiating like someone who knows what the work needs. Her smile returned.
Anything else?
Yes. I do not marry under contracts, leaked promises, or conditions imposed by mothers. She nodded, and I saw disappointment she was too proud to hide. I stepped closer. But I do not want our engagement to end because Marcus used it against us. I took Eleanor's borrowed ring from my pocket. I have a daughter, a dead wife I will always love, a house that needs repair, and enough stubbornness to make your board miserable. I have a company under investigation, a mother who arranges marriages during cognitive episodes, and no idea how to be ordinary. Good. I was never interested in ordinary. I held out the ring without taking her hand. This time, you choose. No deadline? She asked. None. No cameras? Never for this. No condition that I save your house? You already helped save the truth. Claire placed her hand in mine. Yes. Not because my mother demanded it or the board believes it.
Because I love the man who opened his door when he had every reason to close it, and because he is the only man who looked at my power and asked whether I was using it well. I slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her. No one applauded. The city moved outside the glass as if nothing had changed. Everything had. The revised Bellwether plan kept every occupied home unless the owner freely chose to sell. It added affordable apartments, a public riverwalk, and a memorial wall naming Rachel and the 6 other people killed at Rivergate. I designed the wall's steel frame. Claire chose the words. Safety is a promise made to strangers. On opening day, Eleanor traced Rachel's name, then took my arm when memory briefly slipped. She did not ask where she was. She asked whether we had kept the promise. We did, I told her, and we will keep it tomorrow. The months after the board vote demanded more strength than the victory itself. Marcus was indicted for fraud, obstruction, and evidence tampering. The state reopened Rivergate, declared Rachel's authorization fraudulent, and issued a public correction clearing her name. Other families received settlements. I received one too, but the letter saying Rachel had tried to prevent the collapse mattered more than any check. I read it to Lucy beneath the blue blanket. So, Mom was a hero? She asked. She was an engineer who told the truth, I said. That is something better, because it is something we can choose to be. The condemnation order vanished. Vale Urban bought the actual contaminated plating yard, funded the cleanup, and redesigned the technology district around the existing neighborhood. My workshop became the Mason Community Design Lab, where teenagers learned drafting, carpentry, and structural safety. I accepted Claire's revised offer only after the safety office received independent power to stop projects. At first, executives assumed I had been hired because I was engaged to the CEO. Within weeks, I had halted 2 unsafe pours, rebuilt field review, and created a reporting system that let any worker flag danger without permission. I made enemies, admitted mistakes, and earned authority project by project. A year later, the board named me President of Project Integrity and Community Development. 18 months after that, after 3 major projects finished under budget without a lost time safety incident, I became Co-Chief Operating Officer. I did not become Claire's equal because I married her. I became her equal in leadership because I did the work.
She remained the sharper strategist. I remained the stronger field leader. We disagreed fiercely, then went home, made dinner with Lucy, and returned to the issue when anger cooled. That was how we learned the difference between conflict and abandonment. Eleanor improved too, though no honest doctor called it a cure. Removing the medication that worsened her confusion, treating a severe vitamin deficiency, and giving her consistent neurological care greatly reduced her episodes. She still lost words and sometimes woke unsure of the year, but she never wandered away again, and no one used her diagnosis to erase her voice. She moved 2 doors from us, corrected everyone's brace designs at the workshop, and answered every time Lucy called her Grandma Nora. Claire and I married the next spring in our yard. Before the ceremony, Eleanor pulled me aside. "You were furious when I ordered Claire to marry you," she said. "I am still reviewing the offense. I remembered who I was several days before I called. I wanted to know whether your kindness depended on my helplessness. The money was a test. I knew. No, you knew I was testing you. You did not know I was testing myself. I needed to know whether I could still recognize a good man." She touched my cheek. "You made me trust my mind again." At the ceremony, Lucy carried Rachel's blue blanket and draped it across Eleanor's bench, a piece of the family we had lost sheltering the family we had found. Claire walked toward me without cameras, security, or a board watching. When she reached me, she whispered, "Still no deadline?" "Not for this." Years later, people said a billionaire changed my life by saving my home and giving me a career. They were not entirely wrong. Claire opened doors that had been locked against me and risked everything she inherited to tell the truth. But I changed her life too. I gave her a place where she did not have to be CEO before breakfast. Lucy gave her unscheduled laughter. Eleanor gave us both the painful lesson that love becomes control when fear makes the decisions. The first choice was still the simplest. An old woman stood on my porch with no name, no address, and no promise that helping her would lead anywhere good. I opened the door. Sometimes wealth arrives in a black car, justice in an encrypted file, and love inside a ridiculous bargain no one intends to keep. But change begins earlier, when someone with almost nothing decides kindness is not something the world has to earn. If this story stayed with you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes strength and compassion belong together. Then tell me below, was Eleanor wrong to test us? Or did her impossible demand reveal the family we were waiting to find?